With this blues guitar lesson for beginners video, we'll take the next step in being able to solo and improvise by learning how to play the blues scale in any key. We'll also show how to play the blues scale along with backing rhythm tracks in different keys as well. Along with guitar tabs and box pattern diagrams, we'll cover it all with this step-by-step approach. Now, musicians rely on a system of notes and letters to communicate musical ideas, and this system is a must-learn when it comes to learning how to solo with blues or rock. And for example, if Carlos Santana were to sit down with Eric Clapton for a jam session, you're not going to hear them communicate like this. Oh, hey Eric, I've got a really cool riff. Starts off with my finger here for the first note, then for the next note I put my finger here. Instead, they're going to use terms such as let's jam in A minor or let's play some blues in B flat. And what we're going to do with this lesson is we're going to explain not only how to play blues in B flat, but we're going to show you how to play blues in any other key. And not only are you going to understand the terminology and how to communicate like that, but you're also going to practice playing in different keys with different backing tracks. Now, before we get started, you'll need to first have a foundation of two blues soloing basics. First, you'll need to know how to play the pentatonic minor scale box pattern. And second, you'll need to know how to name the letter notes on the fretboard using the chromatic scale. And we've covered both topics in previous videos, so if you're unfamiliar with either one, I have links in the video description for both lessons. But otherwise, what we'll do is we'll do a quick review of each topic in the next two clips. The pentatonic minor scale is the primary scale used in most blues and rock guitar solos. And even though pentatonic minor is the more official or academic name of the scale, most guitarists refer to it as simply the blues scale. And the first step with learning the pentatonic minor or the blues scale is to know a box pattern, to be able to play the pentatonic minor box pattern along the 5th fret position. So we're going to do an example of that right now. And also on the screen, there is a tab example of what we're going to play as well. So if you can sync up with what I'm doing with the fingers with the tab, that'll be the first step, and here's how it sounds. It's one thing to be able to play the pattern, but you also want to emphasize certain notes. You may have noticed when I went up the pattern, I finished it off with letting that top string 5th fret sustain. And then when we did the descending order, I let that last note on the bottom string 5th fret sustain as well. Now, another perspective for learning box patterns is to use box pattern diagrams. And what's showing on the screen now is what we just played. A box pattern diagram is pretty much like an aerial view of the fretboard. It doesn't tell you the exact running order of notes, but if you can visualize patterns while you're playing, that's going to help as well. So let's play the pattern again, this time looking at it from the perspective of a box pattern. So if you have this pattern memorized and you know how it syncs up with guitar tabs and the box diagrams, that's a great first step. And also, before continuing on with this lesson, you should be able to play the pattern, what I just did, in less than 20 seconds. That's going to help for later on in this video when we start jamming or playing along with backing rhythm tracks. For this lesson, we also need to know how the chromatic scale is applied to naming letter notes on the guitar, most notably the bottom 6th string. The bottom 6th string, its letter name is E, and all you have to do to count up the bottom string to name every letter note is go up the music alphabet or move up the chromatic scale. Chromatic scale is the music alphabet. And if you don't know the chromatic scale, a quick review of that, you add a sharp to every note except for B and E. B doesn't get a sharp, E doesn't get a sharp. And then once you get to G, as you count up the alphabet, or actually G sharp, then everything repeats again with A. So a quick review of applying the chromatic scale to the bottom string. The bottom string open is E, and as we move up the chromatic scale, the next note, first fret, is F, because E does not get a sharp. So E doesn't get a sharp, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and E again at the double dots. If you end up on the double dots with the same note you started with open, you know you did it right, because there are 12 notes in music before everything repeats again. So if you can apply the chromatic scale to the bottom string, which is what we just did, and you know the pentatonic minor box pattern, we're ready to put it all together to play blues in any key. Now if we go back to the previous box pattern we played along the 5th fret, that was an example of blues in A. And the reason why it's blues in A, it's because the first note we play with this, what I refer to as a standard box pattern, that first note, that letter note, determines the key you're in. And to prove that this is A, we apply some guitar logic with the chromatic scale. The bottom string open is E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So if you play A and then follow that with the box pattern, that's why this initial box pattern can be described as blues in the key of A. The pentatonic minor box pattern is movable, meaning the same pattern can be played along any fret position or key on the guitar. All you need to know is the letter name of that note on the bottom 6th string that begins the box pattern to determine the key. For example, let's go back to A that we practiced, A blues, along the 5th fret. If we were to move up 2 frets, it would be A sharp, B. Same pattern, just a different key. That would be blues in B. Now going back to A, another note I want to make, if we move up 1 fret, we could call that A sharp blues, but another note regarding the chromatic scale is it helps to know about enharmonic notes. Enharmonic notes are pretty much synonyms for the same note, 2 names for the same note. A sharp could also be referred to as B flat. So we have the enharmonic note showing on the screen right now. One key to note on this is that one guitarist could say, hey, play some blues in A sharp. Another could say, let's play some blues in B flat. And pretty much they're both asking for the same thing. Now memorizing where all the letter notes are on the bottom 6th string right now is not as important as having this method to find notes along the bottom string to determine the key. And if you simply start with the open 6th string E, you're going to find every potential blues key between the 0 and the 12th frets. Remember, there's 12 notes in music, so every letter key is going to be somewhere here between 0 and 12. Now, one note, if you did want to figure out a shortcut or one note to memorize, I would start with memorizing that A, as far as the bottom string, is on the 5th fret. And since a lot of you learned the blues scale in A as your first key, if you memorize where A is, that could be one good shortcut. So, for example, what we did with B blues, rather than starting with E, if you know A's on the 5th fret, you know A sharp, B, you can get there a lot quicker. But the safeguard measure is simply start with E every time and count up, and eventually you'll find your key. Now that we know the concept of playing in keys, now we're going to do some examples of communicating with other musicians, and then we'll also take it a step further by actually playing along with backing rhythms in different keys. But that first step, communicating with other musicians, I can go back to the previous example with Eric Clapton and Carlos Santana. What if you met one of them and you said, hey, I can play guitar, can we do a jam session? And they said, sure. And they said, how about we'll play a backing rhythm in G blues? What would you do? And the first step is to figure out where G blues is on your guitar. So if you want, you can pause the video and see if you can figure it on your own. And in the next clip, we'll take that first step and review the G blues scale. To play G blues using the standard box pattern on guitar, you would be starting along the 3rd fret on the bottom string. And how we determine that is if we count from the bottom string open, which is E, use the chromatic scale E, F, F sharp, G. So now that we know where we start to play the G blues box pattern, the next step is to actually play along with a backing rhythm, and we're going to do that in the next clip. But before we do that, I want to give you a couple pointers, especially if it's your first time playing with the backing rhythm. These pointers might come in a little handy. Number one, you just want to focus on playing correct notes with clarity. You don't want to rush into it. You don't want to sound like Eric Clapton or Carlos Santana right away, because most likely your only option for soloing is going up and down the box pattern. The primary objective with this is just to hear how the notes blend in or harmonize with the backing rhythm. And the only way to do that is by playing correct notes. If you try to play too fast, if you try to show off too quickly, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to have too many stop and start overs. So play the correct notes with clarity. And also, you want the last note in each ascending and descending run to ring or sustain. So keep that in mind. We are going to have a guide track. So along with the rhythm, I will be playing the box pattern. So don't go ahead of it or behind it. Just see if you can keep up with it. And that'll be the primary objective with the next clip. And so with that, play along with the next clip. And by the way, we're going to have enough time to go up and down the box pattern 2 times before the backing track ends. Now you may have noticed when comparing G blues to A blues that you have to extend those fingers a bit more along the 3rd fret position. That's because the frets are spaced a little farther apart as you move down the fretboard. And actually that's a good thing to do now that you just learned the box pattern, is to warm up or practice playing this box pattern along lower fret positions to give your fingers a better workout. And the ultimate would be playing along the 1st fret position, which is F blues. So let's do a quick example of F blues if you want. See if you can play along. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Is it good to practice along lower fret positions, but it's also a good idea to practice higher up along the fretboard. Especially if you have an electric guitar, it'll be a little easier, but practicing higher up on the fretboard, whether it's acoustic or electric, is also good for you because you have to focus more to get clarity as the frets get closer together. And in fact, that's what we're going to do in the upcoming clips here. Is we're going to practice in D flat higher up the fretboard along with a backing rhythm. But at this point, if you want, you can pause the video and see if you can determine where the D flat blues box pattern would be. The D flat blues box pattern can also be referred to as C sharp, and that would be on the 9th fret position. If we used A as a shortcut, on the 5th fret, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, also known as D flat. And here's a quick review of how it'll sound. Don't have to play it that fast, but you do want to get some clarity as well. So again, with the next clip, we'll also have a guide track. You can practice playing D flat, and again, we'll have enough time to do two sequences going up and down in D flat. Now, if you made it this far into the lesson, you might be chomping at the bit to play a little bit faster with the backing rhythm. And with the next clip, you're going to be able to do that because number one, there will not be a guide track of myself soloing. It'll just be the rhythm. And we're also going to extend the rhythm a little bit and add in some variations. So that way you can go at your own pace. And if you can play it 2, 3, 4 times, whatever works for you. But the key is now you're going to hear how you harmonize with the backing track. So again, prioritize correct notes with clarity, give it some decent volume, but also play as fast as you can if you can maintain correct notes with clarity. Another point is also you want to end maybe on that top string note like we did with the previous example. So if you happen to be in the middle of a riff and the track ends, try to play that last note, and that produces what's called a harmonized ending that just simply sounds better to end a jam with. So with that, have fun playing along with the next track in B-flat blues. Once you have this lesson down, you now have got a great foundation to move up to the next level or lesson in blues soloing basics. And in that next lesson, we're going to show you how to learn and copy and play some classic standard blues riffs.